So let's talk about, you started out talking about the permissive parent.
Yes.
So I see this in my office. I see families come in where the child can be a little bit disrespectful. The parents don't have the disciplinary measures in place.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk about how that affects treatment in a bit. But basically, when it comes to something like eating, like we love to think about families eating together. This is where the parents are, let's say they're making chicken and pasta and green beans, and that's the meal for today. But the child just doesn't want that. So the child will just kind of pick what they want. The parents working really hard to make their special meal because they don't want the chicken. They don't like the chicken. It's not tasteful to them. So it's not talked about it, but the child just makes the decision.
Mm-hmm.
Or to the extent of, okay, we're not going to have chicken today. We're going to have whatever you want today.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like whatever the child wants, they're ruling the nest.
Yes.
And then you have the authoritarian parent, because I think you said that next. That's it's my way or the highway parent.
Yep.
That's when it's chicken, pasta, and beans, maybe said in a nice way, but that's what you're going to eat. If you don't eat that, but go in the other room. That's what we're having.
Right.
Child kind of feels like kind of disrespected, kind of feels like, wait, I don't like chicken.
Right.
And especially if many of our kids are sensory kids, they can't eat the chicken. It doesn't taste good. They don't like it. So, but that's what you're eating. So basically, if you don't eat that, you don't eat tonight, or you'll eat later when you have your snack. And then we talked about the uninvolved parent, where it may not even be around, like dinners whenever.
Right. Right.
Say that's...
Yeah, it could be, like I said, uninvolved is a very interesting type of parenting, because so many times parents feel like, well, I can't be an uninvolved parent because I'm in the home all the time. But there's also the difference between, like I said, the physical and emotional uninvolvement. And children feel that. So this could be a parent that, again, is in the household, but maybe they just leave money on the table and they're like, all right, figure out your dinner. I'm just going to be sitting in the other room. I have work to do. And so the child, again, even though the parent's in the household, they still feel that neglect. They still feel like they're almost, in a way, I know this sounds like a strong word, but almost abandoned in a way of like, I don't know who to turn to. I'm just eating by myself. So that's what I would say is more of the uninvolved.
Yeah. And then we talked about authoritative. This is the family that's more responsive. Let's talk about it. Reciprocal, clearer standards and understanding, but they set the boundaries. So here's how I describe it in terms of eating. The child isn't comfortable with the chicken, doesn't like the chicken, doesn't like the pasta. That's not a great meal. Have alternative meals.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the child likes chicken nuggets, but
Right.
they can't eat the grilled chicken, or they're hamburger kids, or they're pizza kids. Nutritious. So you have like 3 or 4 options,
Yep.
knowing that child may be a sensitive kid, but they're involved in preparing that meal to help. So it's not just on mom or dad to make it all happen.
Right.
It's, okay, you don't want chicken. We preparing it. We talk about it in advance. You're not going to eat chicken. I know that's one of the foods you're not a great lover of, but mom, dad, sister, brother, we love that. So why don't you pick one of your alternative meals?
Yeah, I actually think that's a great example, because I think so many times I have parents that will say to me, I don't want to give my child too much choice because then I'm worried I'm going to become like a permissive parent where the child then takes over. And I always explain, again, when we think about the combination, right, those 2 ingredients like control and also warmth, is there. It's okay to give your child choices. It's okay to allow your child to be part of that process. But like you said, you still set some of those boundaries. So it's not, all right, you know what? You choose whatever we're going to do. It's, as a family, let's make a decision. I'm going to say we're going to have, like you said, we're going to have chicken, pasta, or this. You tell me, out of the chicken, do you want chicken nuggets or do you want maybe like chicken thighs or something like that? And the child says chicken nuggets, right? So you're still setting the boundary as a parent of, this is what our meal is going to look like.
Right. They're not,
but you're giving choices.
They can't have a hot fudge sundae for dinner.
No, I mean, I would love that. Honestly,
too.
that would be very fun. But I did. Well, and I think that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I definitely had I remember as a child, like there were times where I had mac and cheese when everyone else was eating something, because I was a picky eater. I remember being like that, but I do remember always having like different choices. It wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to eat whatever I want. It was very much, let's make that decision together. And I think it made it more effective because the child feels like they're in control, but also a parent has those strict boundaries at the same time.
Yeah. So these are like really good examples, and we can go on and on. I'm going to give an example of maybe a permissive parent. Let's say you're going to a movie or you're at a function and you're at the function, you're looking forward to the function, and the child at the function, no specific reason other than they just wanted to leave. The parent says, we're there, and the child turns to the parent and goes, I want to leave. Parent's like, really? Yeah, I want to leave. Permissive parent goes, okay, let's leave, without thinking about their own needs.
Right.
And also feeding too much into the child's wants.
Right. It's like the child has the full control.
Right. The authoritarian, which is my way or the highway, the parent rises up, you know what, I don't want to miss a show on TV, or I'm going to make a couple calls, or I have an exercise, I'm going to do it now. I don't really love this show. And the parent goes, come on, let's go. And the child was really invested in that, didn't want to leave. So the parent kind of pulls them out.
Right.
Instead of the permissive, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, of course, the uninvolved may not even have been at the show.
Yeah.
But, or if they were sitting on their phone, not even thinking about their child's needs at the moment, but only their needs. But then there's the authoritative parent that might say to the child that says, I want to leave. So the child wants to leave. Mm-hmm. Wait a minute, honey, I'm watching this show. I really want to finish watching this show. We have about 20 more minutes. Like, it's important that this was something we were supposed to do. I don't want to get up and leave.
Right.
And so I'm saying this example because I've seen this happen.
Yeah. And it could be like, for example, let's say it's a sensory sensitive child, right? They have selective mutism. They're at an event. It could be planning beforehand. Like, you know, I might realize that my child might get really overwhelmed. They might be overstimulated in some of these environments. So maybe the parent brings 2 or 3 like fidgets or self-soothing things that, or like earbuds or something like that, that could be helpful. And then when the child might say, Mommy, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, I need to go right now. Parent says, listen, we only have a few minutes left.
Right.
I obviously acknowledge that. I want to be here for you. But remember, we prepared for this. Do you want the earbuds or do you want your fidget toy? Right. And maybe then they give their child that control. We transfer that control, but the parent's still saying, no, it's important that we stay, but why don't I help you? And why don't I, again, give that emotional support by having you choose those 2 options? So that's what I would say would be a good example for.
Yeah, no, that's a great example. I love that example. And also maybe choosing seats that aren't right under the speaker.
Exactly. So, and I know you mentioned this a lot, and we do this with a lot of our patients, is like, why don't we talk about what would be most effective? So even before we go to an event, let's think about what are the things that will allow us to succeed the most. Maybe it's, all right, I know I have a child that gets very overwhelmed. Maybe I sit in the back corner because I know that there might be a time where you might need less of that volume, or so there's different ways that we can like.
And of course, based on the age, a 3-year-old
of course,
a logical conversation, but the parent is in advance. This is why,
yeah,
the whys are so important, because we have so many sensory kids.
Definitely,
we have kids that have some auditory processing difficulties, so they're at a show, and it's a lot of talking, and they can't follow it.
Yeah, this
frustrates the child. They may act out. They may shut down. So it's really understanding that child,
right,
in these settings and what may affect them to behave in a certain way or to act in a certain way. And we start to figure out what triggered that child to act a certain way. And that's how some of the ways that we figure out our parenting.
Yeah.
What caused them to act out or shut down.
Right.
And you kind of look at those triggers and then you kind of work through that.